Then we were good. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to ZooBox. I'm Shaun. Got a little short, off the cuff movie review. I assume it's going to be short. I only have so many thoughts about this film. So I just watched the recently released film, 2023's No One Will Save You, directed by Brian Duffield, starring Caitlin Dever. The logline plot synopsis is in this captivating sci fi psychological thriller, a young woman who's been alienated from her community finds herself in an action packed face off with a host of extraterrestrial beings who threaten her future while forcing her to deal with her past. So yeah, this has been the talk. This has been the talk of film Twitter, genre Twitter, nerd Twitter for the past couple of days. This is a Hulu movie. Well, it's technically a 20th Century Studios. I'm not sure how the delineation works there. So I had never heard of it. I did not know it was coming out until about 3 or 4 days ago when I saw people on Twitter kind of singing its praises, talking about it. And because I got to tell you, man, like 20th Century Fox or Studios, oh, sorry, 20th Century Studios, uh, they like do an awful job of promoting their stuff. Like I'm a nerd. Like I'm into this kind of stuff. I watch these kinds of movies all the time. All the live long day I watch movies like this. And I had no clue that it was coming out. Never even heard of it. Never even heard of it. And it's got a great title. I love the title. No One Will Save You. Well, I liked it before I watched the movie. We'll talk about that as we get into the review. So just as a disclaimer, I don't know if how much or if I'm going to spoil this movie. I'm just going to be speaking off the cuff. So I want you to know that going into this review because it is the kind of movie that is probably best served knowing nothing about it. Like I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. I even gave away in this introduction more than I knew about the movie. The only reason I knew it was a alien invasion movie is because the poster, like the key art, it makes it explicit. At least it seemed like that's what it was going to be. The only thing I knew about it, going into it, and I wasn't sure if I was going to watch it. I just kind of ended up watching it on a whim because I just couldn't like. I was like looking at my movie shelf and I just couldn't decide what to watch. I was overwhelmed, so I was like, "Oh, I remember that movie came out. I'll go check that out." Because most of the time, movies like this, when they're like really praised on Twitter, I just end up either being really underwhelmed by them or not liking them or whatever. My tastes are not in aligned with like the modern. I don't know. What do you call them? What do you even call them now? The modern like film dorks, film nerds. Our value systems are all different. We were very different types of people. Even people my own age. Even the I guess we're elder millennials, something like that. I just don't. I don't agree often. Don't agree often with modern sensibilities because I think writing has gotten really, really bad. Really bad. There is no such thing as subtext anymore. Everything must be just text, and I find that really obnoxious. So before I talk about the things I didn't like, because I'll just be upfront, I thought this was fairly middling, but there were things I liked about it. And the things I liked about it, I think ultimately kind of make the movie worth watching if you're just into movies, if you're kind of more of a little bit nerdier about it. You like to see how things are made. You like to watch something that's kind of clever. Well, mechanically clever. There's some mechanical. Most of my problems with this movie have to do with the casting and the writing, and we're going to talk about that. But anyways, hold on, I'm going to hit this vape pen. This thing fucking sucks. Not the juice, but the little fucking pen thing I have here sucks. It fucking blows. I need a new one. Anyways, where were we? Things I liked about the movie. The things I liked the most about the movie, it's a mechanically very sound movie. I think the way that it uses its set pieces and its sense of escalation, even being able to kind of be suspenseful in moments and draw out some real honest to goodness like tense moments. I think that stuff worked really well. I thought the film was paced fairly well. Um, and and I really liked the look of the movie. I thought the cinematography was really great. I thought like its aesthetic kind of vibe was very cool, especially towards the end. Even though I don't like some of the stuff they do with the story, like I thought the visual design was clever and worked pretty well because it gets a little bit more like kind of introspective, turns into more of an explicit psychodrama like in the last half hour. And I thought there was just some cool looking visuals, some cool looking aesthetics and stuff. The alien, the creature design, the extraterrestrials, they went with like kind of a very classic kind of ET look. Kind of remind, in fact, like a lot of the visual, it's almost like a motif is that old picture of like the farmhouse and somebody being abducted from a farmhouse. You know the one, you know the famous picture that told us all what extraterrestrials look like, or that's what extraterrestrials were based on, or something like that. I can't remember the lore exactly, but you know exactly which one I'm talking about because you're a smart, cultured person. It kind of reminded me of that. It almost has like a visual, kind of almost like a motif of that painting, that picture. So there's some cool stuff like that. And if you know a little bit about, like alien hunting, whatever the hell you want to call it, if you're into that kind of stuff, I think there's some cool, fun Easter eggs that I will not spoil that I think are cool. I think like even the design of the aliens being kind of very, I wouldn't say it's generic. It's just very classic. It looked really well. The nature of the extraterrestrials was actually pretty cool because they have like kind of this intelligent animal kind of vibe to them, and the way that they communicate through sound, just kind of like an homage, a little bit, a very small, very slight homage to maybe even something like Close Encounters. Um, some cool stuff. Some cool stuff. They got these cool little hand toes, so it looks like a hand coming down. That's what their feet look like, and they walk around like that. That was kind of cool. It was kind of cool. A cool design, a cool, clever design. But that's about where it ends for me. The things I liked, which those are good things to like. Those are good things to like. Like I said, I think those things make the movie worth watching. If you're into the stuff like that, if you like to watch movies on kind of on a more critical meta level, you'll enjoy it. You'll get something out of it. I don't feel like I wasted my time. Where I think the movie is lacking, though, is probably number one is the casting. The casting of the movie, Caitlin Dever, who's probably like a super nice person, probably just the coolest chick on the planet Earth. I think she reads very young. She reads like she's 15 or 16. I think she is in her mid 20s, maybe late 20s, but she reads super young. And there's a critical thing in this movie about something that happens when she's a child that is supposed to kind of have weight on her and kind of turned her into some kind of pariah. I mean, as the movie goes on, you kind of understand that this is mostly just a psychodrama. It's pretty much all in her head, and none of it's really literally happening. People act very unnaturally. There is no dialogue really in the movie. There's 8 words of dialogue spoken, I think, in the entire movie. I think I saw because I looked up like if there was some trivia about it or whatever right after I finished watching it, and that gimmick also just becomes a little tedious by the end, a little grating. But she, as a performer, she just reads so young. She was a little stiff. I think she was kind of a little bit out of her depth, and she just doesn't like innately imbue anything of a character. Like if you had somebody that was older and more seasoned and more established, maybe me as the audience member had like knew a little bit about or had some sort of sense of their persona that they put on screen, I think it would have done a lot of heavy lifting, and that could have carried the movie because it's the whole movie is on this girl's shoulders. Like she has to do everything. She is on screen almost every single frame. The movie completely relies on you buying into her reality and her dilemma and her like self-examination. You have to really buy it into it. You have to care about her. And I don't think the movie did a very good job of kind of making me care about her. Like I said, part of that is just the underdeveloped nature of the character. It doesn't feel like a character. It just feels like somebody that's kind of just reacting to things. There's no internal life, I would say, to the performance. That's what I would say. And I think if you got like somebody like, and maybe this would be cliche, or maybe you've done this like 15 years ago or something, like Charlize Theron from like 15 years ago would have been like a great casting decision for something like this. because she just there's more of a world wariness to her. There's more of kind of like a maturity to her that I think would have greatly assisted this movie. Um, and especially just like the way, like the artificial nature of the setup and everything like that. You're never really even given a very strong or a long opportunity. I don't know, strong opportunity. That'd be a weird way to put it. You're not given a lot of time to really even buy into the like the verisimilitude of the world, like because it automatically feels off. It just feels off. It just doesn't feel real. It feels surreal to a certain extent, and it does that from pretty early on. Pretty early on, it feels that way. There's like a few instances where she has interactions with people, like the first 15 minutes of the movie, that feel completely weird and unnatural, which is not, like I said, is kind of exacerbated by this like decision to not have any dialogue in the movie. It just makes it even weirder and kind of creates a distance there when you're supposed to be kind of full on empathizing with her character and really kind of buying into it. Now, if they had given her some dialogue, if they had done things like that, I think with this actress, it probably would have been fine. But she's just can't bring something like in a subtle way and like her physicality, like none of that really registered in any meaningful way to me, at least to me. Maybe it's just me, but I just did not buy that performance, and not buying that performance essentially makes the movie not work. Kind of makes the movie not work by and large. Um, and also, I think it just kind of stretches the premise like very, very thin. If this had been like a short film, if this had been like 45 minutes long, I think you actually have a better movie. It's just more, it would have been more impactful. This one, by the time like the fifth like fight with an alien happens towards the end of the movie, yeah, like the fights do escalate and kind of evolve in their nature and their and the context of which they are happening, which introduces like kind of different elements to be utilized for an encounter, an action scene. But it's the same fucking thing over and over again. Like the most exciting one is the first one because you don't know what's going on. There's a real sense of vulnerability. You haven't really been dragged into this notion that it's not like exactly really happening, technically, technically, even though it is at the same time. It's just kind of it gets very tedious and contrived by the end. Which the ending, I was just kind of like, whatever. It was just stupid. It's the title is No One Will Save You. Well, that's because that's the message of the movie is no one will save you. You have to save yourself. You have to forgive yourself. You to be able to move on and live your life. Okay. She made a mistake when she was a little girl. She made a mistake. So the whole movie is about her coming to this kind of personal revelation, this personal conclusion that she, accidentally killed her friend when they were kids, and it's haunted her life. And the town has never forgiven her, even though she lives there. And that's another problem with the movie. Is like, and another part of it, like feeling kind of phony and weird. There's no one else in this girl's life at all. There's not even a hint of anything. It's all so streamlined. It's also kind of the vision of the film, the perspective of it is so narrow, which I understand is partially by design. Like I get it. I just don't think it worked like kind of at the end of the day. By the end of the movie, I just kind of felt like it had completely lost anything that had made it interesting in like kind of the first act. It had all kind of gone away. Um, so yeah, like I guess it's typical. That's typical me watching a movie that everybody on Twitter loved is not really loving it. I really wanted to too. Like I was jonesing for. I really liked the title before I knew that it was this fucking stupid, like on the nose cliche pun about what the movie's about. It's like, oh fuck you, fuck you. Um, but I really wanted to like it. Like I want to like things like that. Like I don't go to movies to seek out like to go shit on them or anything like that. Like I don't. Who the hell has time for shit like that? Not this guy, okay? Not Shaun Deegan. But I just couldn't get there. Just couldn't get there, man. And I don't what I was gonna watch something else, and I opted to watch this instead. Well, I went over to my movies and I was like, I own too many fucking movies. I can't make a decision. But I remembered and this popped in my head, and so I watched it. I should have just watched. I don't know. I'm looking at my movies. See, now that it's happening again. I got too many to choose from. You know what? I should have watched Family Plot because that's the last of the later year Alfred Hitchcock movies I have to watch. I should have watched that. Should have watched that goddamn movie. But like I said, even though I'm saying that, I didn't. I'm not like I'm not mad that I watched it. It was just kind of like ends up being kind of middling and mediocre. And even though it does have some stuff, like I said, admittedly, that works pretty well. That's pretty cool. It's pretty clever, you know. But yeah, I would suggest if you're into this kind of thing, if like check it out. If you're a busy person and you only have so much time to kill, so many movies you can watch in a year, then definitely don't watch this. For the type of person that only gets to watch like 15 or 20 movies a year, do not make No One Will Save You one of them. Find something else. Find something better. You know what's a good way to describe this movie? It's the pull from like other movies that it's kind of similar to. It's like the last 15 minutes of Signs mixed with Crawl. Remember Crawl? The Gator movie? The Gator movie from a couple years ago? It's like that. And then it kind of has some visual touches of Edgar Wright's also not great Last Night in Soho. Anna Taylor-Joy though. Smoke Show. Movie? Not my cup of tea. I'm just rambling now. I'm gonna go. Anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Shaun, and I'll see you next time. I'll see you next time, pal. Pal.